Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 22 of I'm a Celebrity 2025. So, just before I do the review to episode 22, I'm going to do the episode 21 review from H leaving the jungle. So, I think he was actually probably the most famous person in there that I knew. I knew a lot of the celebrities in there, but I think H, yeah, for me, like British rapper, yeah, really, really nice guy. He seems like a really down to earth guy. So I think, yeah, he was probably my favourite person in there. It's a shame he didn't win or get to the final three because he has quite a big following. But like I said, that was a shock for me. But I think the other three absolutely well deserved it anyway. He said he was over the moon, and he said that the final three were absolutely mega. And he said he doesn't care if he was to win it or not because someone good's going to be winning. He explained that he's learned a lot about himself and other people as well. Jack said he's incredible, he's kind, he's charismatic. And he said after looking at his best bits, he said, I need a shave, don't I? Adding that half the things in the VT of his best bits are things he can't even remember because it's been there for so long. He said what he enjoyed the most is overthinking, what he wants to know from other people, but then being able to just have a laugh, be real, be unique. He said it was good to have like-minded people in there because some things that he wants to have chats with or about with his friends, he feels like he can't really do. But being in the jungle, there's obviously no distractions. He said in terms of the things that were positive, he's usually on his feet trying to please a massive crowd, but this is probably the smallest crowd that he's performed to. He said in the jungle, you kind of feel a certain way. You don't want to give, negative energy to other people. So if you're having like a down moment or a down hour or a down day, you kind of just want to dismiss yourself temporarily until you feel better. And then you kind of, go back to everyone else. He said with the whole camp suite situation, it doesn't really help motivate you. And he said with things like Jack's letter, it did help. When they all stole the extra milk bottles, he was like, well, it was Jack's letter and he's going to have a word with Kelly after the show. Anton Deck obviously asked him about his relationship and his friendship with Ginge, and he said that they knew each other before they went in. Obviously, they're both from Manchester, they're both in the kind of creative industry world, but they're a lot closer now. And he said that the first few chats they actually had were while they were both playing games online. So that's kind of how they met, just digitally, and then it obviously turned into like a proper friendship. He said that out of all of the 11 other campmates that he's been in the jungle with, Ginge was the one that he had the least amount of in-depth conversations with. But I guess over time you kind of just you give someone a look, or you just talk about a certain thing, or you use different keywords, and then people just know what you're talking about. So yeah, he said in terms of the winner, when he saw his sisters, he was a bit gobsmacked. It was a mega experience for them as well, because they can obviously say, look, they were in the jungle. And he said in terms of his winner that, he loves Shona and Tom is a legend, but the crown needs to go to his hometown, and if it's not going to be him, it has to be Ginge. So for the final three, Ginge, Shona and Tom. I think at this point, all three of them are absolutely fantastic. Like I said, I think all 12 celebrities were an amazing cast. I think Ginge is very funny because he's young, he's current. He's almost like, a content creator, influencer, someone that people can actually relate to. Tom, LGBT from the Rainbow family, very posh, very well spoken, very funny, and very, from kind of the past, but actually, again, quite current. And then with Shona, she's on one of the biggest TV shows and soaps of all time. So again, to have somebody like that in the jungle as well, it's and she was the last remaining female in the show as well. She's representing all the women, and she actually did really, really well. Like, I don't think she would have gone out first or second or third. I think she's got a big audience, and she's really winning those trials. So yeah, I'm glad that she stayed. So yeah, a very good final three. Shame about H. But yeah, she still did absolutely fantastic. Again, Ruby. Shame about Ruby as well. I think they would have probably been my top five: Ginge, Shona, Tom, H, and Ruby. And again, the other seven absolutely fantastic, but kind of didn't really get to see much more than what we got to see. And based on everything we saw, that's what I would have done as my top five. Tom explained that Ginge was actually really, really relaxed, and now he's made Tom really, really nervous. Shona said that having to say goodbye to H was obviously quite sad, but there's only one more day left, and then they'll be able to see each other again. And Tom explained that a great part of him thinks that one of the children, i.e. one of the other two campmates, should win. Ginge said he'd never thought of the opportunity to be on the show, and now he's in the final three. And for the final time, they all went to the live Bush Tucker Trials area to take part. to be able to win their starters, their mains, the desserts, and their favourite drink. So the first trial was for Shona. So this was her final trial of I'm a Celebrity. She was playing for the 3 starters and obviously her chosen drink. She had to be strapped down in a box and she had to remove 4 stars from kind of like a stick with her tongue. So it was on a podium. She had to just swill the stars off and get them to the end. I think she ended up having 40 rats in there with her, crickets, cockroaches, mealworms, the rest of it. Tom said that she had a really good rhythm. Shona said it felt like she almost had whiplash. And, you know, Tom was kind of given like sympathy noises saying, you know, you're doing really well. And, you know, she ended up doing it and smashing it. She got absolutely, she passed all of it and she absolutely smashed that. So an amazing final trial for her. Then you had Tom. So he was playing for the 3 main courses and obviously his drink. He explained it was actually his first solo trial since being in I'm a Celebrity. And he said, you know, it's almost like he's having to take part in a Bush Tucker Bonanza. And yeah, when this table of food was brought out to him, it was like lovely bits of cheese and turkey and the rest of it. And he goes, oh, shame I can't eat any of that because that stuff on the table actually looked really nice. He also said, I wish I didn't have that 3rd cup of rice because obviously he'd probably bloated himself up, wasn't really feeling hungry, but then also knew he was taking part in a food challenge. The first of the dishes was a fermented duck egg and scorpion. And usually when people have this as a challenge, they do one thing at a time, or a bit of the egg and then a bit of the scorpion and whatever. He put the whole egg in his mouth at once. And he said, you know, I'm going to put the scorpion in to accompany it to give it some sort of texture. So he kind of was having a scorpion and an egg in his mouth at the same time. So disgusting. But again, absolutely smashed it. Didn't even look like it affected him at all. The second one was a super silver jubilee dish, which was camel's brain, pretty much gone. He, I think, thought he had to have both parts of the brain. He just had to have one half. The third one was pig's vagina. And he said, you know, I've had you in liquid form, with Shona saying it's just a mushroom. And Tom said, no more vagina. And the fourth one for his champagne was a huntsman spider. So quite a large spider, obviously not alive anymore. Again, within seconds, he lifted it up and it was hanging. And then it just was just a bit not great. And then finally it was Ginge. So he was playing for the 3 desserts and his drink. And he looked at Shona and Tom and said, do you guys even want dessert? And they were like, go on, you can do it. So didn't say yes or no. They just said he's going to do it. He said he feels like he feels like he knows what the trial's going to be or what it's going to at least involve. With Shona saying it's going to be okay. And Ginge said it's not okay. So what he had to do was put his head in a box and then put his hand also in a box to grab the star. And what he was joined with was obviously not great. So in the first head and hand boxes, with his hands, he had toads, and with his head, there was mealworms. I guess not great, but it's obviously only going to get worse. For the second one, he had his hands around lizards, and in his head was crickets and cockroaches. And for the third one, in his hand, he had scorpions, and in his head, obviously his worst nightmare of snakes. And for that one, I think he kept his eyes closed because he just said, I just need to focus. I'm not even going to bother looking at what's in that box. And at the end of the trial, he said, I completed it, mate. And in the final box, there was rats in his hands and spiders in his head. So that was the fourth and final one, which, again, I also think he didn't quite look for that one. And yeah, they all 3 went back to camp. They basically won their 12 stars. Ginge said that when they went back to camp, it looked nothing like what it looked like before. Shona was excited to have her prawns. Ginger's starter was actually burger chips and halloumi fries, which actually kind of is like a whole meal, but he ended up having a whole meal just as his starter. He must have been hungry. And for Tom, he had a bowl of salmon. Tom said that Ginger's starter was a starter only by name. And for the mains, Tom had pink venison, Ginge had pepperoni pizza and chicken, and Shona had a weird Irish meal, saying that they actually deserved their meals. And for dessert, Ginge had a carrot cake, Tom had a chocolate cake, and Shona decided to just put her head in her cake. Tom also said that the experience has been singular, transformative, magical, and a loving experience, and to share it with the both of them was obviously an amazing opportunity and something that he was able to, be thankful for. And then we found out that the 3rd placed campmate, who was eliminated just before the revealing of the final 2, was Shona. So she did really, really well to get into the top 3. She came 3rd. So in my next review, which is 22 part 2, I will do my little interview for her.